Woohoo! How is everybody doing? Good? We're only down 7.5% in the last 24 hours, so, could be worse, and we're doing well. Here, wait, stand up, guys. We were joking back behind stage that right now Bitcoin is me, Brandon, and Timo's height, and pretty soon we're going to go back to Robin levels, right? We're going to go back up eventually, right? So, yay! So, on a more serious note, that is what we're talking about today. The conference asked me, what do we want the panel to be about? And I think, especially given today, it's about we are not too late to Bitcoin, everything's going to be fine, and that the long-term future is very bright. So we have some wonderful guests here. We have Robin, we have Timo, and we have Brandon. And so that's what we'll be talking about. So Robin, how about we start with the tallest guy here? Why do you think we are still early to Bitcoin? Why are we not too late?
I think there are a lot of reasons, and actually, I got asked the question a lot because I have almost 700 guests now, and there's one major learning I had from all those guests is that people still, and with people I include Bitcoiners, to this day are underestimating the huge impact that Bitcoin will have. And they're kind of overestimating maybe the speed of the adoption that we are going through. And I think we all kind of can relate to the first story that we had in Bitcoin. Like the first 3 years in my Bitcoin journey was the journey where I didn't had Bitcoin and I thought it's a scam. And at some point I was like, maybe it's a unique diversifier. Then it's like, maybe it's a savings technology. And then you come to the point and it's like, oh, it's a foundational invention that revolutionizes money. It is money at the end of the day. And if you think about a foundational invention, it's like a wheel, it's like a fire, it's like all those things. And if you have something like that, which is foundationally revolutionizing things that we are doing, and think back of the first guy that invented the wheel. I looked this up today. It was over 5,500 years ago. The first time he got this wheel right, he couldn't imagine what the wheel did 5,000 years later, 1,000 years later, even 100 years later. And everyone here came with something that was powered by the wheel, like the train, the plane, the car, a scooter, whatever. And foundational invention is by definition always undervalued by the people that look at it in the early stages. And I mean, the electronic telegraph was completely underestimated by everyone in the first decades, what it actually meant for the world because people didn't understand it. And this is the thing that I'm always saying, like we are super early and people still don't grasp it, how huge this impact of Bitcoin will be, because we can look at the market cap and say like, oh, it's like already almost as big as the biggest company, but it will be way, way bigger than that. And just quickly on that note, if we are just becoming as big as money, the opportunity can become to like 400, 500 trillion. At that point, now with the new price, like there's a 250, almost 300x from here. And I think this is just the beginning because we all don't grasp like what Bitcoin really can bring for the world in 50 years, 100 years, and 200 years.
Timo, what do you think? Why are we not too late? Why are we still early to Bitcoin?
Well, I've always used technology as the metric system for, adoption in certain sense, and I do agree with you that we still have a lot of ways to go because, like, you have all these technologies like DeFi on Bitcoin. You have so many platforms offering various interesting options to basically work with an asset like this. So it makes perfect sense, really, that there are still a lot of people who have no idea the possibilities and how big it's going to be. Like you said, I was listening to Fireside Chat yesterday with Winklevoss Twins and King, and I have to say the vision that they have and the future that they were talking, it's really far. Since, like, as you have mentioned, Robin, that you thought at some point that it was a scam, right? So the similar way, there are still a lot of people who think that it is pyramid scheme or something like this. So I think until we have people thinking about things like this, it is still like really early.
Brandon, Mr. Green Candle himself.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think it's very interesting when you look at Bitcoin in terms of how it's being adopted, the total number of supply here being 21 million. I just don't think humans really grasp how scarce this asset is. I mean, if you evenly distribute Bitcoin to everybody in the world, it's just over 200,000 sats, which is less than $200 now that we're crashing and burning below 100,000. But if you look at the world globally and how wealth is distributed, there's 62 million millionaires here globally. And if you look at the wallets of Bitcoin, Satoshi millionaires or 0.01 Bitcoin, there's just over 14 million wallets that have 0.01 Bitcoin or more right now. So it's 4 times more rare to have a million sats than it is to have $1 million right now. And I think everybody in this room would say, hey, being a millionaire is probably a pretty good accomplishment, but it definitely doesn't go as far as it used to. So when we see the amount of money being printed and how it's being developed, everybody thinks, 100,000 Bitcoin, we're still too late. We can't get a full coin. But if you really just break it down to the nitty gritty, we're still just so early with how everybody's developing and how everybody's buying Bitcoin. And you still have plenty of time to get in and just get to that, 1 million sat mark.
I think it's a great point, and something obviously that's a very hot topic this year has been the Bitcoin Treasury companies, Bitcoin companies, and corporations in general. I think that's a very good point. Something that I think all of us can agree that we're asked about a lot is, when are all the companies in the world going to adopt Bitcoin? But the reality is that, adding to what you said, most companies are never going to be Bitcoin Treasury companies because most companies in the world won't even be able to have a UTXO. There's 6 million sats per company in the world, 200 to 400 million companies or whatever. And there's not the capacity for that many to have underlying UTXOs. And so not just owning 1 million sats, but having a UTXO is a sign of itself that you're already comfortably in the top 1%. So I fully agree with that.
Yeah, and it's definitely accelerating. I mean, I think people in this crowd over here, we're seeing big crowds at these Bitcoin conferences, and I've seen all of you guys at Bitcoin conferences for the past few years now, and I think we see more and more people coming on. But even with this amount of development, I think that we're still just so early if you look at the numbers, because everything is so public. The data out there, the amount that is moving, how many transactions are being made on the Bitcoin network, and we still have a long way to go, but obviously it's, greener pastures or oranger pastures maybe in the future, to say the very least. So with this development, with the treasury companies, I think we're just really starting to hit the ground running. And I think we're going to start to get to that exponential gradually then suddenly curve here in the next few years. And it's, definitely encouraging to see all of the positive effects that we're seeing from new administrations. We're seeing governments, companies, all starting to come in. So I think we're just on the ground floor, and they're saying that the plebs aren't even here this cycle yet. So I think that there's a long way to go in this bull run, even though we're down in the dumps here today.
And it's so interesting because the price is such a huge topic for us. It is like when it crashes down, we get kind of fear, we get okay, maybe we feel wrong and all of that. But as we said before, not all companies can own a UTXO on the base layer. It's massively undervalued how stupidly scarce Bitcoin on-chain self-custody actually is. And you still have the chance to buy a lot of them. And so I always see a dip as the opportunity to buy more sovereignty, to buy more freedom, to buy more of the thing that I actually want to achieve. And this is, for me, every dip is an opportunity to go a little lower. So especially if you are under 50, under 40, the younger you go, the more you benefit actually from Bitcoin staying low, from this 2025 being the year where we're kind of around the 100,000 era all the time, between 80,000 to 120,000. That's the perfect year to accumulate. You can just buy and you get for $1, now over 1,000 Satoshis. That's freaking awesome.
Yes, totally agree. I think that something else regarding the UTXOs is that it's really cheap. You can have the right of moving UTXO. You could pay to have that moved for less than $1 typically. And I think that in 5-10 years, people aren't going to believe that. It's whoa, you've made an on-chain transaction. Wait, you made multiple? Wait, it was less than whatever, $50, $100, $1,000, or whatever it's going to be to make a transaction in the far future. I think that people, myself included, we like to look at the Bitcoin price, but sometimes we forget that other side of the context, the other scarcity being not just in Bitcoin's space, but also in time and the time chain. So, Timo, what do you think?
I got into crypto in 2018, right after the whole ICO craze. And at that moment, I've observed Bitcoin come down from 20K to 3, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And at that point, everyone also thought, okay, it's over. I mean, done. Like, we're not. It is not going back up. But I mean, we have seen this scenario play out a couple of times already, and I do agree with your point, Robin, that every kind of dip is a new entry point, new possibility for new players to get in. Since like we are seeing more and more treasury companies right now, and they are accumulating this huge sums of Bitcoin. So I mean, I think it's perfect time right now.
Beyond the Bitcoin treasury companies, I think that to me, something else that gets me really excited personally is, yeah, sure, the Bitcoin treasury companies are still early because they've only bought 1 million Bitcoin. Of course, 60, 70% of that is Seyr alone, right? So it's mostly him, right? And so, yes, that's early. But the other thing, too, that we've literally just seen the last couple of days here is the entrance of a central bank, right? Everyone's always talking about, oh, gold's better because gold's up this year, Bitcoin's up and flat, the central banks are buying gold or whatever. Well, now that's no longer true. They can't say that Bitcoin's not having it done anymore. We saw it with the Czech central bank literally 2 days ago. So I'm curious what you guys think about that. Is this the beginning of something new? They floated the idea a couple years ago, and people said that won't happen. And now they bought $1 million of Bitcoin, which is still basically rounding error. So what do you think with the emergence of central banks over the coming years? What comes to mind with that?
I think it's very simple, no matter on what level. If you're an individual, a company, a central bank, an institution, a pension fund, whoever or whatever you are, if you want to stay relevant, you have to buy Bitcoin. Like that, like if you want to stay financially relevant, you just have to buy Bitcoin over time. And so I almost see like strategy being like almost like a central bank of Bitcoin. Like if they have already now, and I completely underestimated how quickly they can accumulate them, 600,000 Bitcoin, which is a crazy amount. How many central banks can still compete with that? Like how many central banks can now still, if they say today, I want to accumulate Bitcoin, how many of them can outcompete strategy at this point? It's crazy for me. And so if you want to stay relevant, and the Czech central bank obviously wants to stay relevant, so they're testing out with the small buy of Bitcoin if they want to do it. Obviously they want to do it. And so it's just like central banks and institutions and companies will obviously do it. And there's also this notion of like, hey, we don't want to buy the central banks to buy Bitcoin. We don't want to have the institutions or the companies to buy Bitcoin. And I'm like, we cannot really do anything against that. Like even if we really don't want them, it's permissionless, and it would actually be a red flag for me if they all don't want to have. If we still to this day didn't had a single treasury company that wants to buy Bitcoin, it would be more a red flag than the other way around. It's the Bitcoinization of TradFi, and so if you want to stay relevant, like you have to have Bitcoin financially.
Yeah, and I think, just to follow up on that, it's not only just central banks and governments starting to get into it, it's actual banks. I mean, we're seeing some of the biggest Bitcoin bears of the past few years, like Jamie Dimon came out and said earlier this month that I was wrong about Bitcoin. And they're now putting it out in the media that it's the debasement trade. They're mixing in gold and Bitcoin. They're trying to make sure that this narrative is starting to creep into the mainstream media. So, when they try to profit off of it eventually, that it's okay for them to sell it to their clients. So I think it's just the start. We're just starting to see people dip their toe in, and we're going to see, portfolio managers start to say, hey, put 1 to 2% of your portfolio into Bitcoin. And then eventually, once we start to hit that second phase of this bull run, that will turn into 4 to 5%. And then that's when people are really going to start to turn their heads. It's, as much as the longer we get into Bitcoin, I think the less we like to talk about the price. But unfortunately, that's kind of how people look at it. So when you see Bitcoin start to run up, that's when people are really going to start to turn their heads. And, to be honest, since we've been sitting above 100K to 120, I don't feel like, at least for me, like I've felt kind of a bearish narrative even before this, because we've just been, crab walking during this cycle, even though we're above 100K. And I think if all of us were sitting here last year when Bitcoin was at like 60K, saying we got to 100K at this time, I think we would all been pretty happy. So I think we're still early. I still think that when mainstream starts to turn their head and actually start to look at Bitcoin as the true only scarce asset that there is, start pricing real estate and all of these other assets into Bitcoin, I think that's when we start to really turn heads. And I don't even think we're close to there yet. So, I think I'm extremely bullish for where we're going. And I think, we're just dipping our toe in the water right now. And people are saying the water's cold. So,
Water's down 7.5% today or whatever. Oh, it's over.
It's also crazy that we have max fear at like 100K. Like if you think about 5 years back, we were under 10K. Now there's max fear in the market at 100K. Like that's crazy for me. The market capitalization is almost still at 2 trillion. Like it's just like absurd for me if you think about like a few years back where we were bullish at like 15K, and now we are bearish at like 100K.
I will admit myself, having made a bunch of videos on this years ago, I was totally wrong. I thought we're going to hit 70K, and then the retail people will jump in, then we'll go to 100K, then it'll pump, and then that was totally wrong. We hit 70K. I feel like nobody cared. And like I think it's going to be double that. I think it's going to be 140K before people actually care again. I mean, I don't know. That's just my guess.
I think there are a lot of people, and I think it's very legit, that had Bitcoin the last 5-6 years. They bought Bitcoin at 3,000. They bought Bitcoin at 7,000. They made more than a 10x. They made like a 15x out of it. They reached 100K. And then they want to spend some. Like they want to buy the dream home, like whatever they want to do with their life. They want to have the vacation. They want to retire the wife, like whatever they want to do. And it's totally legit. And so I think we all kind of underestimated how many people hodled for a very long time to see the 100K. This was this meme, we are laser eyes focused till 100K. And obviously, in hindsight, it's like, I was also wrong on that, but in hindsight, it's easy to see that a lot of people that hodled for over a cycle were now saying, hey, maybe I can get the dream holiday, maybe I can get the dream house, maybe I can get the dream car, or retire my family, or retire everyone. Like it's a natural thing, and so we have this resistance to the upside at 100K and not to the downside as some predicted.
Timo, I know that you're more into trading than us three or anything, but I'm curious, what have you seen as far as the more shorter term price action for Bitcoin over the course of this last year, like with what Robin's saying with people selling? Have you seen anything interesting? Is it very similar to previous cycles, totally different? What is your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, the guys have covered a lot of ground here, but well, when it comes to price action, like what we are trying to do is that we're trying to create the product that generates profit in any market conditions. So, I mean, we are trying to build something that people can confidently diversify into, like through Bitcoin, of course. And the interesting part is that, Brandon, you have mentioned the real estate companies, and I have a friend who came to me like a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, okay, we want to accumulate Bitcoin. How do we do it? So even like small real estate companies right now and some like small ventures, like it is slowly becoming the standard to have and accumulate Bitcoin on side of that. And Of course, the quantitative trading angle is incredibly interesting here, especially combining it with AI. I think the twins also spoke about it briefly yesterday, that AI is incredibly good at analyzing vast amounts of data, and all this is available openly on blockchain. So I mean, we are basically trying to build around that.
Yeah, and I definitely think too, touching on what you said about the real estate companies, I mean, we're just starting to see the financialization of, or the Bitcoinization of finance that Robin mentioned a little bit earlier as well. So, I mean, I think if you look at the global real estate market, we see Seyr dipping into the $300 trillion global bond market. We see Seyr trying to dip into the $145 trillion fixed income market. And these aren't small numbers, right? I mean, they're absolutely massive. And we have Bitcoin, the fastest asset to get to $2 trillion is here, ready to swallow all those things up. And then we've also got, the fastest growing ETF in history. I mean, everywhere you turn at Bitcoin, once a new financialized product comes on the line for Bitcoin, there's just people waiting and licking their chops, ready to scoop it up and throw a bunch of money at it, because they realize what we in all of this room have realized, that the government has their hand on that money printer. They want to lower interest rates. I mean, Donald Trump has come out and said it multiple times that he wants 0% interest rates, and that's going to open the floodgates. So even though we're sitting here and we all probably thought, the back half of this year, this last quarter was going to be extremely bullish, and we dipped below 100K a little bit, there's still things to look at when you see this full, scarce asset. And you don't have to buy the full $100,000 coin, as we were lining out earlier. And I think as we see more of these financialized products coming online, it's going to be more and more evident just how scarce Bitcoin is, and just having a piece, whether it's, start DCing $5, $10 or whatever it is right now, I think that can unlock financial freedom for everybody in this room just years down the line. You just got to be patient.
The other thing that I love it. And adding to that, I would say that the other thing that gets me excited is that, yes, all these products that we've watched and heard about for, now well over a year, multiple years, we've heard it in hundreds of podcasts, thousands of posts or whatever, right? But I think all of that context, even though it has massively shifted all of our Overton windows in the last couple of years, I think that even is still relatively early compared to what's coming in the future, right? Because all of that is just moving capital around from one current asset class into another current asset class. But I think even thinking beyond that, the next iteration of products, the Bitcoin loans, the Bitcoin mortgages, those kinds of things, where new capital is created. You guys are all talking about real estate here. All three of you mentioned that. I mean, Bitcoin is basically like the housing market before the mortgage existed, right? And so even all these credit instruments and everything else, it's just moving capital around from one place to another. We don't yet have those products that are basically creating new capital to just inflate it up. And so what do you guys think about the future of those kinds of products? What do you think about governments, let's say, adopting Bitcoin to their balance sheets to force the asset value up to justify more printing? I mean, to me, that is like a whole order of magnitude larger than everything we mentioned so far, and everything that all of us are very excited and bullish about with the new products coming out. Like, that to me seems like an even bigger of a deal. Granted, it'll take a longer time, but what do you guys think about that? Do you think about it a lot? I think about it all the time. I can't get it out of my mind. But what do you think, Robin?
I think it's only logical, because I just saw that yesterday. That's why I'm mentioning it. I interviewed Crankadon. He has, I think, $5.6 billion of real estate portfolio. He's the real estate guy since so long. And he was asked on a Bitcoin podcast, if you have the chance of taking $1 billion in Bitcoin or $1 billion in real estate, what would you take? And he, without hesitation, takes the Bitcoin, because you have no tenants, you can instantly sell it, it's liquid, all of those reasons. And for the same reasons, banks will also prefer it for mortgages, for loans, for borrowing against it. Right now, the rates are still high. Like, I am kind of like still not liking to do it, because like it's quite high with like 10%, 12%, maybe 8, 9, 7%. A borrowing against a Bitcoin will be a lot cheaper than against real estate and anything else, because Bitcoin will be the most stable asset and it will be the most saleable asset, the most liquid asset. So it's only natural that you don't have any risk associated with that. Like if you want to sell your Bitcoin to cover your losses, you can do that within like 5-10 minutes, maybe 20. And so it's only logical that those products will come out slowly and then gradually, then suddenly. And yeah, like it's very logical for me, but it's like early. Like the fact that we have interest rates on borrowing against a Bitcoin around the 10 or higher percent is another indication that we're just super early to that whole game.
And the vast majority of Bitcoin does not have any kind of financialized product with that, right? Like getting back to the whole real estate analogy, the vast majority of real estate has some kind of fiat denominated collateral against it. But the entire Bitcoin lending space is like a couple $1 billion. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a real estate crisis right now. I mean, young couples, young millennials, they're having a problem affording housing all over the world, especially in the United States, even when you have all these different tax benefits and other things like that. So Bitcoin is truly the only thing that can fix the damage the government has done already with just printing and printing and printing and inflating away all the younger generation's life at this point. I mean, so without this life raft, I would be very, I guess negative up here, but I'm extremely optimistic with just having the Bitcoin and the amount of just, a little bit of this scarce asset that everybody can accumulate over time to be able to unlock things like the American dream or the European dream of owning a home. It's not dead anymore just because you can own a little bit of Bitcoin and use that to either help collateralize a house or make some different decisions or have kids at a younger age. It's unlocking so many different things that the government has essentially taken away from us just from printing and printing and printing over the years. So I think that the Bitcoinization of all these financial assets that Wall Street has essentially ruined over time, Bitcoin's the only savior. And I think over time, we're going to see that become more evident. And I'm just extremely bullish of seeing all these different talks and all these different products coming online and really building on that in order to help build a bright orange future for all of us.
And I can say that from where I'm from, there's a huge demand on like buying real estate with Bitcoin, borrowing against it. But what we have is quite strange, which is a fragmented adoption. So there's a demand, but there's a half regulation that kind of allows you to do it, but also not. Like I'm from Georgia, so like we were one of the first countries to have a blockchain-based land registry, for example, on Bitcoin blockchain. And like there's a huge demand. We have many exchanges. There are some companies that are offering payments in crypto for buying houses, but it's off through a couple of mediators, and process is quite hard since the regulation doesn't support the whole process. So I think if we can make it happen, it is going to be a huge and really big opportunity for a lot of people.
I have a small, quick message also. I think especially for younger people, when we talk about maybe Gen Z, or for the older ones that have Gen Z as their sons or daughters, the quickest way for you to own a home is to buy Bitcoin and wait 2 cycles. Like it's very evidently for me, because like I see a lot of my friends and a lot of my younger peers. I'm 27, so I know a lot of like 25 to 30-year-olds, maybe also like 18 to 25-year-olds. They want to own a home. They want to build a family. They want to do something. And the best way and the quickest way for that to happen, if you are now 20 years old and you want to have a home with 30, 35, I think saving up for the down payment and then making the mortgage with the home, that's that. Like that won't happen. Like you are the 50-year mortgage. What Trump said, like you're just a slave for 50 years at that point. And so like having the Bitcoin route there, and maybe with a small size of your stack, buying real estate is a lot better as a way.
I think it's a great place to end in that. Really, yes, it's all about number go up, and yes, that's what everyone talks about, and it's all the YouTube thumbnails, right? But at the end of the day, that's how we know, and that's how we hope that we're early to Bitcoin, as it has cultural impacts, it has impacts on all of our lives individually and collectively for all of our loved ones. So thank you all for your time. Thanks for joining. And thank you all for coming to the conference. Really appreciate it.